A little bit of both, 50-50.
Okay.
We're working on it.
Okay, ain't no rush, man. You know? You guys are enjoying your new house, though, aren't you?
Oh, we are, yeah.
Good.
I don't own a truck anymore, so nobody ever tells me when they're moving now.
Trucks are needed.
Yeah. Bruce, are you online?
I am. I'm here.
Okay. You doing good?
Yeah, doing well. It's been a busy day, so we're
Oh,
just sitting down for dinner. So I didn't figure you guys needed to see me eat.
no, we don't want to do that. Probably spaghetti anyway.
That's right. Or chili. It's the
No,
firehouse.
it's mac and cheese.
Oh, well, there you go. There you go. Keep that carb load going.
So you guys know, when it comes to public safety report, Lieutenant Hackle is out of town, so we got Sergeant Gerkman. So just drop the hammer. No, I told him we would be nice to him too at Faith and Blues. I told him he'd worry about with us. I think that back to out on the phones that we'll go ahead and do roll call votes tonight, like we had in the past, and just start with Council President Nissen and then Councilor Minor, Councilor Rios Campos, and myself.
And Mayor, just to remind you again, when it's still breaking up a little bit, so
Still
that
breaking up.
phone,
All
that
right.
mic can be very sensitive. So
And the other thing with these mics is, even if you put them really close, it won't get any louder in here.
Good.
It helps modulate here, so there's nothing wrong with, you're not gonna all of a sudden get really, really loud, because the system helps to modulate it.
Well, and I'm just hoping that if it's closer to me, I can't turn as far away from it when I turn away from it.
Yeah. You can pull them close without worrying about shouting down. Shouting, blowing out Sergeant Gerkman's ears.
All right, it's 6 p.m., so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And before we do the land acknowledgement, I just want to let you know of a small change to the agenda. When we get to past the consent calendar, we're going to move number 6, resolution 30-2021 to the number 5 slot. So just about what we're talking about. It's because we're moving that agenda item. Now we will do the land acknowledgement. The Chinookan peoples, known as the Clackamas and Cascades, are the indigenous people of the land now inhabited by the city of Wood Village and areas of the Columbia River. The village of Nechakli was located near today's Blue Lake Park. An ancestral life of these peoples included a seasonal round of resource gathering and stewardship from the Wapato fields and fishing areas of the Columbia River to the cedar and huckleberry gathering areas of the High Cascades. Introduced disease from early settlers dramatically reduced the number of these people. They signed the Willamette Valley Treaty of 1855 with the United States government and were forcibly removed to the Grand Ronde Indian Reservation. We thank the descendants of these tribes for being the original stewards and protectors of these lands since time immemorial. We also acknowledge the systemic policies of genocide, relocation, and assimilation that still impact many indigenous Native American families today. We are honored by the collective work of many Native nations, leaders, and families who are demonstrating resilience, resistance, revitalization, healing, and creativity. We are honored to be guests upon these lands. Now we will have the Pledge of Allegiance. Say it loud if you're here in the house because it's behind our mics. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. So now we'll open the floor for citizen comment on non-agenda items.
There are none.
There are none. So we'll close the floor then for citizen comment on non-agenda items, and we'll welcome Sergeant Gerkman to the dais for his first public safety report. Okay, Sergeant.
Having me, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I appreciate it. Like the mayor said, this is my first time doing a crime statistics report, so if I stray off or miss something, steer me in the right direction. Looks like in the month of September, there were a total of 366 calls for service within the city of Wood Village. That's right about the average for the last year. The only real significant changes that I noticed were traffic stops increased substantially from the month prior, but again, falling around the year average. And stolen vehicles, both reported and recovered within the city, went up a little bit. Stolen vehicles, it looks like we usually average about 3.4 reported a month over the last year, and we had a total of 6. It looks like the recovered stolen vehicles also doubled the monthly average, which was. There's a few different reasons that could occur. What we often see in colder weather is call volume goes down, which gets more deputies out on the road for a longer period of time. They're going to find more stuff. As far as more being reported, we also usually see when the weather gets colder and wetter, more vehicle thefts occur. It could be people trying to shelter, it could be people not. Out of those 366 calls for service, 161 were dispatched and 205 were self-initiated by deputies. Again, that fell right within the monthly average for the last. 34 of the dispatch calls were considered emergency calls or high priority calls, while 125 were non-emergency calls, and is right at about the year's average. I saw that there were 8 vehicle crashes reported in the city of Wood Village. What I don't know is if those crashes actually occurred in the city or if they were just being reported once they were in the city. Could sometimes be someone got into a fender bender on their way home, decided to go home and report it, or it could have occurred, on 223 in. I can say that none of the crashes that were reported in Wood Village were significant.
They're on Park Lane.
Right.
They're door dings and that in the parking lots at Lowe's.
And there were definitely a few in that area. I reviewed the monthly crime log, and really the only call that kind of jumped out at me. It came out as a threat with a weapon call down at the Travel Lodge. It turned out to be a guest had threatened one of the Travel Lodge, and that person was taken into custody without incident. Those were the things that jumped out at me that I wanted to share with you guys. Is there anything you'd like me to clarify or cover better?
Go out on the phones first to Council President Nissen. Do you have any questions or comments for Sergeant Gerkman?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilor Minor?
No questions either. I wasn't able to pull up that entire report, but I appreciate the sergeant being here.
I don't have a question on the report, but it seems like you were at the event on Saturday. I'm wondering if you can kind of touch on that. How do you feel it went? Maybe some areas of improvement, or just, is this something you guys are thinking to do another time?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. We do want to continue doing it. I think the event went well. It went smooth. Talking to our communications group with the sheriff's office, we probably could have advertised it better and a little bit earlier to try and get a little bit more of a crowd. But all in all, I think it went well. And I think the more we do, the more they'll grow over time. This already, like, we're starting to recognize faces. I've got to go to. It's good because we're starting to build a little bit more of those bridges with the community. But yeah, I think that we'll continue to build on them. I don't think we necessarily should be waiting around for these national events. I mean, if we could just start even just our own local. I thought all in all, it went smooth. Fun interacting with all the kids.
Yeah, that's great. The only common, we received a few phone calls of not understanding kind of what the event was. And so there were some confusion. And so, again, some misunderstanding. So yeah, something I would suggest, because I did see the post and, you guys are kind of leading with the shred event. And so at least with the Latinx community, that's really unknown. And so,
Sure.
Not knowing what that is. So I think just if for the future, it would be great to lead in voicing, like, come meet us, come spend time with,
Right.
with the sheriffs, because I think that was the main intent anyways. And, having that shred there could be like a bonus and then everything else. And I think that
Right.
that there was the biggest confusion, because we did, like I mentioned, we got some phone calls and people thought it was immigration. And so we were just
Sure.
like, oh, like, no, that's not it. It's,
Right.
is this positive, good event? But just, I guess those lived experience in the past, just kind of that triggered them,
Sure.
not really knowing and things of that nature. But I think that's great that you guys are looking for opportunities outside the other, the ones that have already been presented, kind of your own, to engage the community. So
Right.
appreciate that.
Yeah, I agree. We talked about that with our communications unit, that we really didn't advertise it very well. It did get kind of advertised as a shred event versus a come interact with law enforcement, and there's just other things going. We also talked to Tom, the pastor at the church, about, maybe getting flyers out earlier. I think it kind of came together a little bit quick at the end, and I think given just if we had a little bit more time, we'd be able to communicate a little bit what we were doing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But and I just want to say thank you for that too, because it fit right in with the spirit of all the other Wood Village events. There was ice cream and it was free, and there was search and rescue team and the boat, so there were things where the kids could get involved and interact with, and they were free. and the turnout from the sheriff's office just incredible. You were there. Lieutenant Hackler, our regular chief, but then also, Sheriff Reese and Under Sheriff Nicole Morrissey. And so we couldn't have gotten, better attendance and better attention from the sheriff, and we really appreciate that.
Yeah, I think it was a good event. My own son showed up and he said he had
Oh, good. Did he win a soccer game after?
they did actually.
Oh,
Yes.
good,
Thank you for
good.
asking.
Yeah. All right. And then the one weapons call that stuck out to you, did the person in fact have a weapon? You said they were.
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
It was described as either a knife, either a large knife or a very small machete.
Okay. All right.
It threatened the employee.
Thank you very much. And Sergeant Grickman, we appreciate you coming.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Okay, and then next up then, the review of bills paid. Does anyone have any questions about the bills paid that are on our agenda top sheet or any of the others that were referenced in the packet? Okay, hearing none, then we'll move on to the consent calendar. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I move to approve this consent calendar.
Second.
Motion and a second. Counselor Nissen, how do you vote? Or Council
Aye.
President Nissen? And Counselor Minor?
Aye.
Campos?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well, so the consent calendar passes. And as I mentioned before, we're going to jump to agenda item number 6. This is resolution 30-2021 supplemental budget with Seth.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councilors. So, talked about this at our last council meeting. There were a number of items that we were going to bring to you and talk to you previously, or we're going to include in the packet to talk with you guys about making some adjustments to appropriation. So you got the staff report. The information that was included in the staff report was published last Tuesday in Gresham Outlook, and it was also posted on our website. So just start talking about what is the supplemental budget. Again, it's required by local budget law to make any changes to appropriation from what was passed by and approved by you guys on May 20th of last year. There are some conditions on, we can't just come back and ask for more money and want to do more things. Some things have to be unknown when the budget was prepared. Another one is unknown federal, state, or local funds were made available. Insurance or property sale used to replace an asset. Those are the types of things that we can bring a supplemental budget forward for. And the supplemental budget must be adopted before we can actually spend the money that we're proposing to spend. It can only be for the current fiscal year. We can't ask you guys to approve anything next fiscal. That's going to be part of the budget process in the spring. And we can't increase taxes as part of a supplemental budget. As part of the process, again, we noticed that changes to the budget.
All right, then we will open up the public hearing for the presentation of the items that will be considered for the supplemental budget.
Wanted to double check with them if anyone had contacted us before 5 o'clock to see if they offer any testimony.
There were none.
Oh,
Thank you. That's shattered.
it's not late enough for anyone to come in and want to talk about finance at City Hall. So we'll start with this is kind of broken up into 3 pieces. The first is the real reason why we are bringing the supplemental budget is we received some of the American Rescue Plan Act funds. So our total appropriation is $908,000. We received half of that the 3rd week of August. We will receive next half a year from now. A large portion of what we're kind of how we knew that this was cooking last spring when we were doing the budget. We didn't know what or how much or how it was going to work, the distribution. We really didn't have a lot of details at the moment, other than something was going to get passed, and there's probably going to be money coming our way. So we actually received these funds, and so one of the actions in that supplemental budget is to recognize that we can't actually spend that directly out of supplemental budget. So what we will be doing, allocating contingency for any of the programs this year that we wanted to fund, which for the general fund, the contingency is $850,000. So we could spend all of it by appropriating it out of contingency, but that's how the mechanics of it are going to work. So that directly related to ARPA, we had talked about, and we'd done a presentation your last council meeting about the utility assistance funds. We projected that $80,000 would be the most that we would out this fiscal year. So from now until June 30th. And then Greg talked to you guys about a Welcome to Computers program, which fit within some of the guidelines specified by ARPA for out to communities, provide computer education, since so much of life has moved online as a result of the COVID-19. So I believe that they had started their first session this week.
Yes. I was at night 2. I couldn't get to night 1. There were, by the time I had left, all 12 seats were,
Okay.
and I welcome people to New Hall and thank them for taking the class. And so it was very well attended.
I stayed late on Tuesday, and when I poked my head out, it looked like there were 6 or 7 people that were here that night. So I'm glad that they had a couple no-shows that night, and they actually got people in the seats on Wednesday. So the computers for that were purchased. We purchased 12 computers for $7,200. That was their fall session. I believe they're going to do some additional another session. There's something offer in the spring. So the $15,000 included in here would cover both the fall and the spring session, providing computers for training on, hopefully start utilizing. So next up, we have some housekeeping items. These are things that have already been discussed with council. You've already given us direction, or they're carryover projects of things that were approved during last year's budget that have some sort of continuation or carryover into this year to discuss with you. So John brought up last meeting about the Hawthorne Trailhead. We had gone out, we'd asked for extensions from CDBG, $8,000 that we had gotten as an award, and had extended that, I think, through December 30th. We had bid it out once, tried to reduce the scope, we were unable to do it, so we had to go back to CDBG that approved. What this will do is it will allow us to meet the bid amount of $135,000 that we received, part of the last request for proposal. Bump up the appropriation from $109,000 to cover the bid of $130,000.
A lot of times we have a 5% contingency in projects like that. So as supplemental for the 26th,
I think so. I mean, they're already working on the project and we're working with them. We don't anticipate any.
The second piece is additional contingency for installation of an inline valve for 238th pump station for our wastewater. There was a project last year to put in a flow meter there to start gathering data at that data point, kind of looking forward to our master planning process and getting started on being able to pull some data out of that facility. So the contractor came out in June. They tried replacing the flow meter, found out that there's some backflow issues that they actually isolate the pump station to do the repair. Subsequent to that, John worked with them and were the guys to see, is it worth doing a valve to be able to shut that down to do work on it, or should we just do a project? It sounded like, and John can answer.
Yeah, so with that, there was no, again, we couldn't isolate that meter to replace it. You know, either we do it now or it's somebody else's headache in the future. We all want to put our name on it and we want to do it correctly. And to do this, they have to do install an isolation valve on the outflow end of the meter. So the meter's at its useful life and some. So our 238th lift station is very important to our metering with our partial. We know how important that is because that's how much allocations we have for City of Gresham. So I think it's important, and our staff feels it's important to install this bypass valve and get the meter replaced.
Not knowing the difference between valves necessarily. Will this have some long-term maintenance issues like exercising and?
If you just, staff would exercise it annually.
So what this item would add an additional $30,000 this year for that work and to complete the installation. Was scheduled to be completed June 30th, but push pause so that we could actually do it right. Other projects. So the first one is a carryover. We had budgeted $10,000 to move from our temporary location to here. Getting all of the equipment out and in here. We didn't actually end up moving until I think July 21st. We had anticipated at the time of budget we were trying to meet that June 30th deadline. We didn't meet it. So that $10,000 that was appropriated for last year fell to the ending fund balance. We would like you to reappropriate that for the city hall move this year. There's an insurance reimbursement, which is one of the categories for which a supplemental budget is allowed. This one deals with the park equipment, the swinging bridge that connected the two play structure pieces vandalized. We want to replace that. That will be the $6,100 will be reimbursed by our insurance company. We just wanted to actually put it in the budget and recognize it explicitly. Then finally, this one was one where it had come up before. This is ERC charge, and that's direct responsible charge. As you guys know, Randy, our team lead, left for a position at the city of Fairview. We didn't have anyone on staff that had the certifications to do that, so we reached back out to the person who had provided that service previously while Randy was getting his certifications. The idea is that we would continue to engage with them until the acting team lead were to obtain those certifications. This will add about $15,000. I think that charge is about $1,400 a month baseline. And that also gives us a little bit of wiggle room. This is one where we will likely have some savings for vacancies and folks that are on a lower pay tier than what we had budgeted for the position. But just to be safe, we wanted to actually budget this explicitly. I'll pause there. Those are all items that you guys have seen before and are hopefully familiar with. See if there's any questions from mayor, councilors.
Council President Nissen, you have any questions or comments at this time?
No questions or comments at this time.
Councilor Minor?
Just one comment on the valve for the wastewater treatment. I always appreciate if we have to dip into our contingency to fix something right the first time. I think it makes no sense not to when we run into these sorts of things, not to come back and ask for a little bit more money so we can get it fixed right the first time. I have one question on the computers, not related to any dollar amounts, but what was the breakdown of people that attended those sessions? Was younger, older? You got any?
Looking at the room from the night that I was here, it was all adults, and I would say they, ranged in age from their 30s to their late 50s or early 60s.
Well, that's great. I guess that would make sense. Most of the kids are getting it at school, and I hope we can continue to do this. Keep reaching out and give them, I don't know whether it's an intro session that we did or keep building that that progression there. So there's a sequence in the kinds of things that we're offering.
Yeah, it starts with, basically started with how to turn it on and how to make it yours, you know, set up the password for entry and that sort of thing.
Good.
In my little speech, I told them to remember that it's not just practical and for utilitarian stuff like, you know, job hunting or you know, doctor visits, you know, on the video instead of having to get in the car. I told them to remember, you know, social media and YouTube, so contact friends and family, and so that they can watch videos and have fun and just de-stress, you know.
Yeah.
Use the
Well,
machine for all it was built for.
Yeah, well, that's great. And we can talk further about it, but hopefully we at some point have some discussion about maybe there's a session or two on using your computer for small business and how we could help people set up spreadsheets and things like that. So anyway, I'm pleased that we're moving forward with that, and people are getting their computers. So that's the only thing I have right now. So, but
Thank you.
do you want any other comments on the? Are we going to continue, Seth? Are you going to continue, or do you need?
Yeah, I'll cover the things that we haven't discussed about yet.
All right.
Well, I guess my only question on the computer class is, and I don't know if this pertains directly with this or if I'll just ask, you know, are we providing, you know, childcare? Are we providing, you know, some type of snacks or anything for those participants? And can that be included in the supplemental budget through the ARPA funds as well to cover those costs?
Yeah, I think that they could. I don't believe we've provided the space in the computers, the computer program is providing all the programming. Can reach out to them and see if that's something maybe for the spring session. Snacks and the ability to have some childcare. If you want, and if you guys, since we have a public hearing and we're doing it, if you wanted to throw in some extra money to what was recommended, we can reach out to them and see if they're able to accommodate that. If they can, we'll have the funding available. If they can, spend the money.
I would be interested in if at anything, at least for snacks, you know, knowing that, you know, childcare might take a little more time, notice and things of that, but I think providing just some type of, you know, meals, or, you know, not a full meal, but at least something I think is appropriate for, you know, especially what we're trying to do here.
And while none of the folks that were in attendance had brought children with them, we wouldn't want to limit somebody from being able to register by thinking come out because, you know, take the kids or a way to take the kids with them.
And again, I think that could attract those that, not that these folks don't need it, but it could attract more interest. And so that could provide us with, you know, providing more of these programmings as well.
I don't have any. I certainly don't have any problem with bumping this a bit, so that you have some discretionary funds should the need arise, and give you a little more flexibility in how we're going about this if you see the need. So I certainly don't have any other issue with bumping this number.
How do we arrive at a number if we're going to do that?
Off the top of my head, I think that $500 would cover any snacks, or probably going to be less, hopefully less than that. But, you know, I think $100 $200.
That works for me, Seth, if you think that's good.
Yeah, let's get it in there.
Okay.
And then the 6,100 on the bridge, is that going to cover replacement, or does the insurance company prorate it?
We have to pay a deductible, which
Okay.
was under I think it was $1,000, but we had money available to do that with operating budget.
And will that be completed hopefully this calendar year or sometime soon?
Will it be fixed?
Yeah.
The issue they're running into with the bridge, the Clatter Bridge that we had, there were some lawsuits. And so they discontinued it. And so
Mm.
we're working with the distributor to figure out what is the replacement for that. So at this point, with shipping delays and everything, we're working with them to figure out what the alternative is. They don't have an alternative, and so they're looking into it, but there were some lawsuits, luckily none here. But there were some claims and lawsuits, and so they that bridge.
So Counselor Minor, if you liked us asking for more money to do things right, you're gonna love the next few changes.
Bring it, bring it.
So first of all, additional water for the splash pad. Had budgeted $2,320 for the new utilities for this building. But at the time, the discussion that we were having with Kirby Nagelhaus was that we wanted to try and have the splash pad be run off the park irrigation, the water reclaimed and used for irrigation in the park. And so that's how we built the budget. Subsequent to forming the budget, we got some cost projections back from them. The cost of actually putting in a storage tank, you have to treat the water before you put it back into the irrigation system, became cost prohibitive. I think it was over $1,000 just to do that. So we hadn't budgeted that. And we moved in here July 21st. We have about a month and a half's worth of splash pad activity before it started raining, so you didn't actually have to push a button to get wet. And the bill for that first month and a half was about $1,500, and 80% of the usage ran through the splash pad meter. So you're talking about $1,200 for a month and a half's worth of splash pad usage. We want to bump that up just because, you know, we could end up having a wet spring, but if things are nice in May and June, we could conceivably go through $2,000 a month worth of water there. So we don't think that we'll need the whole 6, but we're kind of worst case scenario. If, you know, global warming really kicks into gear in 2022, then we want to make sure that the splash pad's able to accommodate at least some mitigation of that.
Just to give you an understanding of some of the usage, it's over 2,200 gallons an hour. Spec sheet says it's about 38 gallons a minute. So
Are we billing the splash pad for a minimum and
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, that's, I mean, yeah, I mean, probably did look like a ton of money up front. $1,000 spending an extra. But, so put that in the, you know, Parks Master Plan, we think.
And part of that was we budgeted anything, we would have just been pulling what would have already been going to the irrigation. There would have been a no new water usage. But now we're running the splash pad and still running the irrigation at this level without any crossover or overlap. And hopefully, and 6,000 was a big number, but we also only have a month and a half's worth of data to try and figure out how much is actually going to get used. And we don't know if the word gets around, we'll get more people using it next summer. Great for engagement, not so great for the amount of water that goes through the meter.
Well, it's paying ourselves, and like we always say, you know, allocation doesn't necessarily equate spent.
Yeah. A new item that was included in your packet. So the week after we sent the notice to get published, we sent that on a Friday, I think October 1st. The next week we had a catastrophic oil sealant failure in the well 4 motor. John worked with his staff to try and figure out what we could do to get it back online. Typically, we would favor replacement over repair. The repair that costing about $12,000 and new costing $21,000. Fortunately, Timeline on replacement, waiting for a new motor is 8 months. Repair is 3 weeks, and since the well is currently offline, we felt that waiting 8 months not prudent. I think that, John, you already engaged with the firm to actually start the repairs and gave them that.
Yeah, so Pump Tech Northwest, they're familiar with our system. They've worked on Shea Lift Station during Dr. Davis issue. So they're familiar with our system. They're real responsive. They already came, they already pulled the motor and started the rebuild on it. And you look at the cost with rebuild versus new. Basically, this rebuild, you're getting a new. Because all the electrical coils, they have to unwind all that copper. They're rewinding it, put new seals and bearings in. $12,000 for getting basically a well motor.
Well, and, and the bright side to the other water line issues with is that now we've proven twice that we can actually, run the city on just 2 wells.
Yes.
So, we learned some information from
Right.
times.
Plan B worked this time.
Yeah.
Is there any like warranty on the rebuild versus the buying new? And are we not that we're anytime are we hoping that it will break down, but is
Yeah,
do you feel that the rebuild is going to be hold sufficient of the new?
I do. But I would also be leery on having our system running off 2 wells for 8+ months. I would not recommend that. But I can find out about the warranty and have that for you second meeting this month in my director's report.
Continuing with utilities, we had a project that was approved as part of this year's budget for well 3. Had some mold and mitigation. I was doing a walkthrough with the guys, not just do a patch job because it wasn't just going to be caulk and duct tape. So we put a budget in for replacing the ceiling on well 3. Contractor came out this week.
And said basically, I could do the work for you, but I'm going to be back here again in 6 months to repair. You have numerous leaks in your roof. And I don't do roof work. I just do the ceiling interior work. But we solicited contractors for roof repair. Been a long-term ongoing issue. Prior to me getting here, it was, tape and caulking to seal it up. It's just beyond that point now. So, and with the mold, that's a health issue. We need to get that mitigated. We need to get the ceiling repaired, and it's just imperative that we do this roof work as soon as possible. And that's 15,000.
Yes, 15,000. So those 3 items were what I would call new about when we originally put the supplemental budget together. And if you guys want to consider those as part of the motion, add those, pass the motion with modifications that are proposed, recommended. So with that, available for any questions and discussions on what.
Council President Nissen, do you have any questions or comments for Seth?
I don't.
Councilor Minor?
No questions.
No questions.
I don't either, so I would then entertain a motion and just remember to make it as modified to include new expenditures.
And the
Oh,
additional
closing, yeah.
expenditure on the welcome to computers.
Right, the welcome to computers for
And
tax or childcare. And as Seth has reminded me with this reason, I also need to close the public hearing. Thank you, Seth.
thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'll move to approve resolution 30-2021, including additional changes as we discussed this evening to the public notice as discussed. A resolution authorizing the appropriation of contingency and making supplemental appropriations to the funds.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Council President Nissen, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Minor?
Aye.
Aye.
Vote yes as well, and so that now we will put in number 5, and this is a discussion on House Bill 2001 with John.
Go ahead and get your presentation pulled up here.
Just quick question. Who does your guys' PowerPoints? Your guys' PowerPoints? In-house? Oh, man.
Definitely in-house.
All right,
No
good evening.
PowerPoint contract.
Good evening, Mayor, City Councilors. I'm here to have a discussion on House Bill 2001. I'm very familiar with it. Before I get into the presentation, the purpose of this discussion is to gain a final direction as we work on the draft code updates. This includes the intent of the code update, basic design standards for all housing types, and any additional public outreach or engagement. The update code needs to be adopted prior to June 30th, 2022, or if we don't move forward with any updates, the precedent that is set by the legislature is basically what we adopt. So with that, we've been working with MIG, our third-party planning firm. And so Greg has been doing a lot of work with them. But basically that House Bill 2001 middle housing bill. So passed by Oregon legislature in 2019. And an update was presented to at a joint Planning Commission and City Council meeting March of 2021. So with that, we provided some information. Again, the deadline is June 30th, 2022. Middle housing, what is middle housing? Basically, it's in the House Bill 2001 has to do with residential zoning. So basically our two residential zonings are Upper Village and the original Village. And middle housing focuses on spatial needs of potential middle housing development types, the willingness of homeowners to sell and or develop the property, market readiness of new units, return on investment, difficulties of consolidating parcels. Again, was the density analysis that MIG was doing. Basically, they went around our city and have been working with other municipals too. And so the middle housing assessment developed estimates for unit size and coverage and determined minimum lot size of the construction. I'll go through, Greg did a great slide presentation here, and minimum square footage, what that looks like with this. So conditions and assumptions. So one ADU unit would be less than 800 square feet. So that just kind of gives you a perspective on what that looks like, what one ADU would look like. Two duplexes, again, less than 800 square feet. Triplex would be, again, 800 square feet per. Quadplex townhomes is the only one that not less than or less than 1,600 square feet. Parking was an issue too that was brought up. So with an ADU, there's no minimum, no additional parking requirement. Duplex through townhome, have to add additional parking. Maximum lot coverage, again, it goes by lot size, so it would have to figure that percent out. Minimum lot size, again, goes by the square footage. Anytime if you have questions, feel free to.
Yeah, there's I guess I'd never really thought of this before. There's no, can't make the curbs longer. So, so in the places where the ADUs are going to require parking, would part of the lot coverage have to be
Well,
parking
ADUs
spaces?
don't-
Excuse me, not ADUs, but the duplexes, triplexes, any of the other middle housing, would their lot coverage have to include the parking spaces? For the extra necessary
Off-street parking?
parking space? Yeah, had to be, yeah.
Not sure on that. I would assume that it would be included on the lot size.
And the only city that has adopted anything ahead of the state is Portland. They did their residential infill project, but they had been starting conversations about that back in 2015 and actually put their process on hold for the state to actually do this. And they're considering some things that are going above and beyond, like eliminating off-street parking, having a sliding scale on those lot sizes that would ramp up from 35% to 70%, depending on some incentives for affordable housing, enabling up to 6 units on some larger lots. So they're doing some stuff that's above and beyond, but everyone else sounds like is kind of waiting for the state to come up with the guidance that will be the minimum standard for the passage of House Bill 2001.
I have just a comment again. I'm missing some of the conversation, so the question I'm going to ask may have already been asked. It sounded like the mayor was on it. Can you go back to the previous slide? So the maximum lot coverage, that would include the parking spots. Am I correct on that?
Yes, I'm assuming yes.
Okay. And John, you mentioned the Upper Village and then the original village. Across there on a Ratter Road, I think there's some property there also that would be part of this, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know why it wouldn't.
And as soon as I proceed here on these slides, you'll see MIG came up with mapping for the residential areas. So hopefully I answer your question, Counselor. Yeah,
and I want to go back to just the ADUs. The ADUs, I understand that. I guess the assumption would be you build an ADU on a backyard. There would be some place for somebody to park a car. If there is no access for parking a car, though, and it's on a road such as a Ratter Road that has no parking area, what do we think about that?
we allow ADUs now.
And the ADU doesn't have to have the parking space.
Right.
Well, that's my point. I know we allow it now. My point is, are we going to allow it any place, whether there's enough room to park or not? Or should we consider there has to be some place for people to park in an ADU that are accessing an ADU, especially as we begin to backfill even, the goal is high density.
Okay.
Does the legislation allow for
And
requiring a space?
that's something I think we'll have to get back to you on as far as how that intersects with our current ADU code. After the meeting, we'll take a look and see if there's anything in there that calls that out and whether or not we can changing our code to now require a parking space for an ADU where we don't currently. I'm not
You
sure
know-
if we, not sure if we're.
Well,
gonna
let's
be in-
just, I would just like a report back on that.
Yeah.
Got it.
And if it's already defined in legislation and or our codes, I'd just like to know that.
Right. And so I will follow up with our ADU code.
Thank you.
Okay. So again, middle housing requirements only apply to single-family residential zoning. So, and those are highlighted in yellow on the map here.
Okay. Okay. All right, John, you've answered my question there.
Yeah, and original village in that upper and part of that lower village there, adjacent to kind of the Wood Village Boulevard, Arata Road area. Existing land uses, again, most of the land in Wood Village is already developed. Existing land uses are generally consistent with the zoning. Vacant parcels are not, are shown in gray. So some of the underdeveloped due to constraints of size of parcels. So, and again, Meg goes through, the single family. So here's a HB 2001. There are 325 parcels totaling about 90, just over 90 acres. You'll see vacant. The majority of that is the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde property adjacent to the town center. Improvement to land ratio, and you can see that the parcels where the values of the improvements are less than the value of the land. Again, this is based on the assessor's data.
Does some of that help to explain why part of our assessment is that we don't expect a lot of development in Wood Village because land is so much more valuable in other places, and that's what.
Yes, I think that what I've heard is there's not going to be a immediate impact. People aren't just going to start ripping down homes because housing prices are high, and to recoup that cost is going to take a while. It's only the properties where they're already going to be needing some sort of substantial remodel in the future. And I think that that's what this is getting at, is if the value of your structure is below the value of your land, that's something that a developer might target. If your house is worth twice the value of what the land that is built on, nobody's going to come tear down a $400,000 or $500,000 home so that they can build a duplex, or at least it doesn't seem like the return on investment's there to do that. If you're sitting on, a double lot when your structure value is $50,000 to $75,000, there's a substantial amount of work that it would need for someone to come in and get bank financing for that home. Those are the types of parcels that would be impacted primarily by the infill. So those ones are the light blue.
Those, the light blues that are up by Gleason, are they in part of an area where if they were developed, they'd be on septic instead of on cities?
Correct, yes.
And they mentioned in the slide before that some of those vacant lands were vacant because of the conflicts within the parcel itself might make it undevelopable.
ADU, again, we allow ADUs. So potential parcels, ADUs could be developed, 318. Again, we allow ADUs, and there's very few currently.
A quick question on ADU, and maybe it's just more of a clarifying for myself. So ADUs, we currently only allow it in these sections here. So in like the mobile home parks, they're not allowed then.
No.
And the distinction there is those are already zoned for multifamily. So if you wanted to put an additional structure on, it'd be a different process to go than building an ADU. You just build a DU, a dwelling unit, rather than an
Yeah,
accessory dwelling
DU.
unit.
Okay, moving on. So duplexes, developable parcels, 183. And as you see, again, that was based on the size of the lot. So you'll see as we progress from duplex, triplex, quadplex, townhome, you'll see the areas, the number reduce on that. So again, minimum size, just over 3,500. Did you have a question, Counselor?
Are some of the ones that are west of 238th, aren't there already duplexes in that area?
Yes.
235, 236?
Yeah. And then triplex, you'll see just that number as the lot size to accommodate that. That number is going down. Quadplex, 115, again, the number is dropping as that minimum square footage keeps going up. And then again, having to accommodate off-street parking. Townhome, you can see 48 parcels throughout our residential area. Some considerations for House Bill 2001. Does not mean the existing detached housing will immediately develop. Again, we do have avenues for ADUs, and it's not like they're knocking down our door to build ADUs. Something to keep in mind. Maximum lot coverage, definitely, as you can saw through the slides, affects the developability. And again, parking requirements, we have to be consistent through our zoning for single family homes. So the scope of work to draft the update. Kind of next steps is an open house, public hearings with Planning Commission and City Council, at a work group. We're here to get feedback from City Council on what direction to go. HB 2001 again was voted in 2019. The Oregon Land Conservation and Development Commission recommends and encourages a specialty work group to help craft House Bill 2001 amendments. The city is not planning this process. Instead, we'll be updating the code to meet the requirements as directed by Planning Commission and City Council.
All right, Council President Nissen, do you have any questions or comments for John?
It doesn't look like he's there.
Somewhere in Tualatin Valley fired.
Yeah, looks like he's on a flight. Yeah.
Councilor Minor, then, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, well, comments. This is a lot to swallow, and I know we've been looking at this, and I think the question was answered there, John, on your slide a couple of maybe one or two slides ago. That it sounds like it's just what you guys are saying, that it's not an option to require additional parking for an ADU in a residential area. I mean, it just sounds like if it's not there when it says parking requirements must be consistent with single family zoning for the ADU. So and that wasn't, it's more of a general question, because as I read about this density and cities moving to density and high density, and I'm reading about it in various places outside of Oregon also, that it just boy, it kind of depends on who you talk to, and in those neighbors up there on the hill, or it doesn't matter. There'll be some people that want those lots big, and and they don't want ADUs next to them, backed up against their property. So it's it's one that's going to require some conversations. The as we look at this, if we're going to add work group, I'd be willing to be a part of that, because I am interested in this for a lot of reasons.
Okay.
Kind of still being new to this, I guess, I'll just ask my questions and then you guys let me know if they're good questions or not. But if we kind of go back a couple slides, or just at least one kind of shows the maps, there are areas that were categorized commercial or mixed use. So this bill only pertains to residential areas.
Yes, residential, single family.
And so would there be a way that, us as city council could identify locations and reclassify those zones, or would that be too much of a process, or would that kind of be counterproductive?
Well, any residential that isn't single family is multifamily. So a lot more permissible what you can do with multifamily than single family. I guess the question I would ask is, what would we reclass? If we wanted to identify are you suggesting we identify multifamily parcels that we could reclassify as single family? Or are you wanting something to happen to take the principles of infill and expand them to multifamily zoned houses or parcels?
But I think you kind of already answered my question then, so, because there are areas, like Councilor Minor said on Arata Road, that there's some land there, and obviously that could probably be used for multifamily, family dwelling. And so since it's already kind of classified, then they're kind of already in that loop to do some of that. So this is, again, pertaining to allow some of these multifamily constructions to be constructed in the single-family home residential areas.
Yeah, so a good example and something that we had a conversation at the staff level is really what this does is it is making single-family more like multifamily zoning. So the potential project north of the pressure safe facility, one of the issues that they were running into is there's no adjacent multifamily zoning. And that was their intention, was to try and build 20 to 25 units as workforce housing. What we pointed, kind of the discussion was as well, that there is single family zoning adjacent in Fairview. So and the lot's big enough that you could subdivide it 6 ways. So what you could do is, talking to the pressure safe folks, is once House Bill 2001 is implemented, if you have 6 lots that are single family, you want to build quadruplexes on there. There's nothing like that is what that legislation is designed to. So it's essentially taking what was single family and making it more like multifamily, what's permitted. And I think that was the intention of the legislature, is they wanted to encourage exactly those kinds of projects.
Bill, the shorthand for it was an.
Thank you.
This MIG study and the staff report have really actually kind of changed my mind a little bit about House Bill 2001. Initially, we saw it as just another attempt to usurp home rule and take away our own, zoning and development code creation, and to take maintaining. But I think that this points out the real limited opportunity, and so I don't necessarily have the fear of major developers coming in and totally over the character of our city. But what I would like to see the open house then sort of present is a discussion on that land value versus structure value. What are sort of the parameters that would make redevelopment economically attractive, and how do we show them how, so that instead of discouraging House Bill 2001, we're actually encouraging it. And it's available, and, you know, somebody might be able to buy, you know, or invest in, you know, an investment property, you know,
Right.
that they'll potentially live in their home or the city that they want to live in, but make some more money off of their lot.
Feasibility and return.
Yep.
I think when we're looking at that lens, you know, it makes sense. I'm just, you know, thinking about it more, just worried about that, you know, we do get eventually those individuals that are looking to just do investment here and then buying these properties, creating that versus what you mentioned. That's very different. And so I think we should be mindful as we kind of do this process to somehow still protect that ability for locals to have that opportunity and not only just attract outside investors.
And, you know, show the locals, live in that sweet spot. Make that decision on their own, but like Councilor Rios Campos is saying, you know, get them out there ahead of the developers in the because I don't like seeing investment of values and
Well, you know,
takes housing off of the market places for people.
here's and I can't, again, I'm missing the large portion of the conversation. But here's what we need to also consider. And I'm all supportive of higher densities and providing affordable housing. But we also can't forget that property owners that own a single family home also are going to be concerned about the value of their property. So as we begin to think about density, and I'm certainly codes on what well, for instance, an ADU, we need to be careful about what an ADU can look like. And I glanced at those codes, and it didn't sound like there was much to restrict what an ADU could look like, as opposed to some of our codes that have on a single family home, they have in multifamily, they do have some clear characteristic. So I'm just going to be concerned, and I want to be mindful that there are single family dwellings that people are going to be concerned about what gets built next to them and what happens to their property value. So it's both angles here that we have to be thoughtful about.
Sure. No, and that's the other part that the open house could be, is for people to have the opportunity to see whether or not they, you know, they live next to a plot that could be developed, you know. And I think that the slides that were in the presentation tonight that shows the drop off from ADU to townhome in terms of the available lots would be valuable information for everyone to see. But our current ADU code does have setbacks, and it does require, you know, hookup to water, sewer, electric that's separate from the home. I think the only places where we really looked at relaxing the ADU code is that at one time, well, when it started, we always required that you live in the owner of the property live in either the home or the ADU. And I think we're looking at relaxing that because, you know, say you build the ADU for an aging relative and they pass, is it supposed to remain vacant because you're not allowed to rent it out? And, you know, and what if you wanted to move and leave both of them vacant? And so I think that, I think that's where we would head with the ADU code changes, is to make it, you know, so both of them could be, you know, like an investment property.
Well, yeah, and Scott, that's, that point, and going back to developers. If developers, as they increase and as it becomes profitable, the, and I recognize this is not gonna happen, next year. But if your accessory dwelling units, and I don't know what our code says you can put on, or cottages for sure. I know we allow cottages, but, those are all gonna be, all those are gonna be likely, or a large percentage of them, rentals. And I think that's what property owners, would be concerned about if we're developing the density, and where you formerly lived, which was, again, a residential area, is now rental. And I'm not disparaging that at all. I'm just saying that the parking then become issues, across the board. So, again,
I think you've come to the crux of besides home rule, the biggest complaint against HD 2001, to the extent that if it does take off, I mean, I'm not the public works guy, but if you got, a 3/4 inch main going 12 houses, it's probably not going to service 24 houses. And so, yeah, it could lead to a lot of infrastructure catastrophe and rebuild potentially in the neighborhoods that do sort of overdevelop the capacity. And I would suppose that if we reached a point in time where all of the land that could be developed for any one of the characterizations was developed, that we'd be out having to buy more capacity. And so yeah, that's that.
well, yeah,
You're right. You're right on to the biggest fear with adopting it, but we are. It sounds like a cop out, but one thing to remind those people of is that we're preempted by the state, and that
Oh, yeah.
we're working diligently to come up with a code that works best for our city, so that we don't get stuck with the one that the state wants to foist on us.
well, and that's exactly right. I mean, that the first, individuals need to understand that is, now a statute, and we need to abide by it. And it's how we implement is what we have to be very mindful of.
And one element I left was during the March joint meeting with City Council and Planning Commission, one of the items brought up was right now, single-family homes don't have to go through. That was one of the elements that I know Planning Commission, I believe City Council also supported that aspect of it too, so we can keep the Wood Village look throughout our residential.
Thanks, John. I'm just hearing part of it, but I appreciate what I heard. I don't
Thank
want to
you.
ignore what I didn't hear.
Well, again, I'm not as well versed as Greg. Unfortunately, he's out tonight. But some of these questions and moving forward, I think we will get those answered. And by, the end of June, we will have, one way or another, we will
Yeah,
have
something will be adopted. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, we got
Okay.
some time, but not a lot of time. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Thanks, John.
thanks, John, John. Thanks for the presentation.
And next, we'll move on to discussion item, agenda item number 7, a discussion of the community member award program with them.
Thanks.
Counselor Minor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, perfect. All right, Mayor and councilors. So today we are requesting council to review and approve the Community Member of the Year Award. So back in January 2021, council reviewed and discussed in creating this program that would recognize and honor those that served the city. And so what council wanted is for staff to kind of do some research for local municipalities and kind of bring back to council on what was, found. So based on staff's research, the staff was able to narrow down those qualifications. And that was narrowed down to the person has to live in Wood Village. They cannot be a city employee. There's no age restriction, and city council can make that final reward. Service must benefit the Wood Village community, and service cannot be paid. So those are kind of like what was found. The time frame for this program, it would kind of start around this time frame. So it would be the fall season. This is kind of where you nominate someone, and then it would be brought back in December for a resolution, and then have a ceremony in around springtime. So that would be the time frame for that. The alternatives for this program, council can choose to add or remove some of these elements. It doesn't have to be, the slides. I went a little ahead of myself. So the alternatives, it doesn't have to be an individual. So it could be a group, an organization, or even a business. And instead of council, we could also have set up a review committee. That could also be a possibility. And then also can make some adjustment of the elements that I just mentioned earlier. And then for the fiscal impact, the cost of this per year would be $250, and that would be for a plaque. And this would also include the gift card package, a newsletter article, and then also an invitation for the appreciation event. So that would be the cost. And then the next steps, if council choose to approve this, we could actually nominate an organization now and then bring it back to council in December for a resolution, and then do a celebration in springtime. Thinking maybe it could be Natural Leaders Group or any other nominees that you guys can think of.
Yeah, that's you all know that Greg and I have a Friday discussion where we go over upcoming agendas, and that was something that he and I discussed. Was picking a person from this past year, and we did talk about the natural leaders, and so just a reminder that not all of them live in Wood Village, and so we might have to look at that suggested code that they live in Wood Village and make kind of maybe a one-time exception. And then we also talked about Teresa Rios Campos as being a potential nominee as well. But I love the idea of the natural leaders, and as we when we get to the motion to consider modifying it so that it can be a group or organization, not just a person. And I think that one thing we might also consider is that saying that there's no cap on how many times you can win. You can be the person of the year 2 years in a row or 7 years in a row. And then also it would be interesting to propose, I think, inviting the prior year's person of the year to join council in as on the panel to pick the new one, until we get to 50 persons of the year, and it becomes but just at the very least invite the prior year's winner to be part of the panel that picks the new winner.
Okay, that's.
And Councilor Minor out on the phones there, do you have anything that you'd like to add for him?
No, in fact, it's those modifications that you just mentioned, Mayor, fully supportive of this. I would certainly support the natural leaders this year as our nominee, and the I think that resident requirement, I think we always have to be a little bit careful if we put limitations that cannot be at least modified and to meet the occasion and to meet the individual. So I'm in summary, I support what you just modified this with, and I think we need to move forward this year and with the natural leaders would be my recommendation. Now, if Teresa might see this as, if we recognize her, she recognizes everybody. But I'm more inclined to recognize the entire group. So anyway, that's my comments. I like the idea, and we're gonna go run it a year and see what else we might need to modify as we go forward.
Councilor
Sounds
Rios
good.
Campos.
Yeah, the only thing kind of I written down was, you know, the fact that if, you know, someone not living here but doing work here and benefiting the community. So
Right.
even looking at it for not a one-time thing, but, you know, just kind of, that kind of is the requirement that they don't have to live here, because the name that comes to
Yeah.
mind off the back that didn't live here but did so much for the city was Pastor Bill Amen. And so, you know, knowing that his heart was here, but, you know, he slept somewhere else, but just looking along those lines. And as this is kind of a new thing, you know, do we have to limit to one organization or one individual receiving that award? I think we have an opportunity here to kind of encourage folks to be more active in the community. And so kind of, you know, if only one person, you know, gets a kind of, could set a tone of, man, I have to do so much to be recognized or get this award, versus, you know what, this individual came out, you know, maybe it was a young youth that came out for one event to volunteer, and we're, you know, kind of recognizing them. I think that brings value as well. So, you know, maybe, you know, this year we do one, but, you know, looking into next couple of years of increasing those, and saying, you know, just depending on kind of the nominees and those stories, we don't just limit ourselves to one recipient.
So if I am understanding correctly, to have more than one nominee?
Yes.
Okay. Like in the future?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would just jump in here too. Councilor Rio Campos, I like that idea. I'd like to see us do one this year, and then promote this, so we do engage other people. And your example is perfectly legitimate. A single person, and it might be a young person doing something.
And it's, and this could lead to kind of a subset of awards, you know, ways to recognize people that's not necessarily Citizen of the Year as well. In fact,
Oh, okay.
Greg and I kind of restarted this discussion about a year ago, because I mentioned a program that had gone away. So it used to be that if somebody living in Wood Village did a significant improvement on their home or yard, you know, just really transformed the look of it and lifted the neighborhood up, we would recognize them. You know, it was during Pat Smith's time as mayor, and it was a mayor award, and a sign was made, and they got to put the sign in the yard, you know, saying that they had been, you know, recognized for beautifying their home and beautifying their community.
Okay.
And so there might be, you know, I'm not suggesting it for now, but there could be
Yeah.
legs that we add to this too.
Yeah, they're actually great ideas. So it's kind of like different. Okay.
Yeah, and even kind of doing, you know, not to separate generations, but like, you know, looking at like
Yeah.
the youth one, or
Yeah.
you know, or things of that nature. But I do remember that, and I do remember a few of my neighbors receiving those awards. So those are impactful, and you know, things that you know, community members are can see it as something they can obtain. It's
Okay.
I would echo that. I know a property owner that has a couple of duplexes here in Wood Village, and he lives in Gresham. And I can remember it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I ran into him. He said that I wasn't living in Wood Village at the time, but said he got a plaque from the city of Wood Village for his duplex that he's been taking good care of as a rental property. So, yeah.
And then just kind of going over the award, want to make sure that if you guys need to make any changes to that, so including a plaque, a gift card package, and then of course an article on our newsletter, and then just being part of the appreciation event. Is there anything that needs to be changed, added, removed?
I guess my only question is, you know, maybe this is at a further future council meeting, but how would someone nominate individual or a group?
That is a good question.
Definitely could,
That could be added to, I mean, whether it could be on our social media, our website, say that, hey, this program is open now, nominate someone. Maybe they could submit an application, and that's kind of where you guys can actually review that.
maybe do a simple online application form that would also produce
Right.
in paper, at least a couple of languages, and
Yep.
similar to the way, somebody would sign up for, any of our programs, just put in their nomination.
I would just kind of suggest, even taking video submittals as, as that would be probably an easier thing for a youth to do, to pull out their phone, capture some, even in the moment type of deals. And that also has some uniqueness and strength to tell a story as well.
Oh, that would be great. I mean, as an added part of the
Or just
application.
one, or, you do the paper application or a video submittal. I think, that can, again, really show some strength in areas that traditionally aren't shown, or people don't feel that they have an opportunity to. I think that way.
Or, and it would be awesome if video also included some of the work that the person that they're nominating did, or if they were nominating themselves, a video.
Yeah.
Something that I will point out is that there was in the staff report, there was a sample of what a form might look like, which is pretty, only a half page, describe why you want to nominate this person, what they've done.
Yeah.
And on the video, I know that on a number of award competitions, the first submittal is written, and then if you're a finalist, then you have to kind of put forward a video submittal, which would be kind of cool for having something done up for whoever wins. Whoever nominated them, that could be part of the campaign to run the video on our website and just kind of put some face behind the nomination.
The radio
That's-
show that I listen to sometimes called E-Town, and they give away an award, and they take nominations from around the country. But the person that does the nominating as responsible for contributing to the programming is the person getting the award. There's a narrative about why you nominated them, how it is that they've touched you or touched their. I think it's incumbent that we put some responsibility onto the nominator.
Sounds good. So I guess just to summarize a couple of things that were suggested, is to kind of be inclusive and include Wood Village residents and also non-residents, right? So did you guys want to actually word it as with exception, or just not even state it at all?
Could we make it?
Just may include a non-resident.
Okay.
Yeah. Pastor Amon was a great example. Pastor Tom Miles doesn't live in Wood Village either.
Okay.
If the entire council got back together and had heartburn over non-resident, we could make it resident, or, organization or business owner. Or
Okay.
you look at, past performance, Amerjet lives in Sandy, but she's given a significant amount of resource to this city, or to our city. And Jim Mott from Advanced Metal and
Right.
Wire, you know, all the things he's created for the city or donated to the city, including his time on the
Right.
Planning and Design Review Board and
And
on the
Marsh
Main
Meats.
Policy Board and the Park Commission. So,
Okay.
yeah, I think it's important that we have an avenue for people, great contributions recognized regardless.
Absolutely. And then, so also including group organization, not just individuals, no cap on how many times you can win. And then I guess part of the decision for the committee would be the city council plus the individual that was nominated from the previous year. And in the future, after this program starts, is to include maybe more than one nominee and to probably include different categories, and then also the online application or video submittal. All right, I
I
will
think-
take that back.
Just one last comment. I think it'd be pretty cool if we could display in the city hall individuals that have received the award. So, I think eventually, hopefully, you know, pictures would be too much that we would have to do kind of just a name plaque, but something here within City Hall that just recognizes them. And so I think that
Okay.
would be pretty cool as well.
Awesome. I will make a note of that.
Fairview does a really nice job of it, actually.
Ah,
Paul. And then, you know, like Councilor Rios was saying, if it gets overwhelming, then it's not 10 o'clock. It's only 7:30.
City Hall in the dark. All right, that sounds good.
All right. And then, and so, yeah.
And this,
Just say
Tim,
one
I
thing,
just-
that Councilor Rios Campos is right. At some point in time, it could be one of those plaques with people's names on them, and the picture is just that year's winner.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yes, Councilor Minor, you were making a
yeah,
comment?
just a interpretation here. This is really an award, and so let's make sure we call it an award. It's not a contest to win something. So I'd like to see us just make sure that this is an award,
Okay.
not a win, or you're not winning something. You're being recognized and you're being
Okay.
awarded this.
Thank you. I'll
Well,
note that.
if I get awarded it, I'm putting a hash mark in my stock.
Well, you can get a little star too.
That sounds good.
Thank you
All right.
very much, Ann.
Thank you, Mayor and councilors.
Good thoughts
Next
on
up.
this, Sam?
Is agenda item number 8, and this is a discussion of our rescue funds and how they might be used to create a utility relief program.
And let me get the screen share set up real quick. Got a utility relief. Mayor, councilors, as you know, last month at your council meeting, we talked and brought together some proposals on what a utility program with ARPA funds might look like. What we're bringing forward tonight is kind of the culmination of what was discussed there with some based on the feedback that we got. So again, for the background, we had a utility relief program. Council canceled some projects, took the savings in the general fund, put some money towards it even before the CARES Act was passed. We some allocation from Portland for their PDX CARES funds. Ran the program for 12 months, ended up distributing $188,000 to all utilities, $7,000 on city utilities in particular. We showed you last month kind of what the projections would look like to be able to fund something through 30th of this year based on past experience. So the new proposed program will be residential only, no commercial relief. There are a number of small business programs that are funded through ARPA and ones that are funded through the CARES Act. Mayor, you and Craig both reached out to try and drum up some interest from businesses that might have been impacted. We weren't actually able to get anyone participate in that, so it doesn't seem like there's a huge small business side that isn't being met through other means.
We didn't get any extras. We had 12 who were approved for an award and got an award. There was some remainder, kind of like contingency in the program, and we wanted to see it go to a couple other Wood Village businesses. One just said we haven't done poorly. We don't need the help, and the other failed to respond despite a lot of encouragement from Greg.
So that was that's the first point. Again, we wanted to emphasize minimal barriers to use. So on the city utilities, same application, just a statement of why it's needed. No income verification. We had some discussion last time kind of about what income verification might look like, and we took that back and we had some discussions. And actually, our intern James had a delightfully moment of inspiration when we were talking about barriers and trying to require some federal programs that were able to reduce the administrative load in terms of income verification and not get us in the business of taking people's financial documents. He mentioned that OHP kind of deals with the same issues in terms of not wanting to discourage people from applying who might be fearful of, participating in a federal program, and does a pretty good job of reaching out to people and not looking at that as setting up their program so it sees the need first and foremost, and the objective is to actually get them in the program and provide the service. And so kind of what we came back, we're kind of proposing is that any type of aid program, particularly OHP, would be accepted as income verification. And then with the idea that if someone comes and applies and isn't already participating in that program, it would be an opportunity to kind of reach out and see if currently are in financial need and you don't have the Oregon Health Plan, kind of guide them towards that of something that would help, not just with, obviously we're here for your utility bills, but for healthcare costs, if you don't have OHP, really get you connected with someone to actually get into that program.
Wallace Medical Concern does a really good job of it, and a lot of people don't know is that family size, if you're unemployed, you can onto the Oregon Health Plan. Actually, one of the times that I stay on for the benefit year,
Yeah.
Until you're asked to requalify.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's an annual verification through them. The income limits are higher than a lot of the federal programs, like the supplemental nutrition and ANF program. For example, a family of 4, as long as you make under $79,000 a year, you would qualify for OHP. For a single parent with one child, that annual income limit would be 52,000. So it's definitely, it's higher than some of the other federal ones. So it's kind of more permissive in that regard as well. And so what we would propose that if would be to take the higher of whatever that some established programs are, and that would be that was what we would use for income verification as well. So didn't want to submit anything, kind of whatever the highest guideline is within their status and family size to determine that qualification. I just want to pause here because I know we had a lot of discussion about that last time to see kind of what you guys think about moving forward with that as kind of the structure of the program.
Is income verification kind of something that the ARPA funds are putting in there, or is that more kind of an in-house?
The answer to that is two-part. It's yes and no. So ARPA doesn't, we could choose to run the program without any income verification, 100%. ARPA does, for their reporting requirements, does kind of like with, that's what I describe this. PDX Cares asked us for a lot of information so that they could report back on kind of who the program was benefiting. We were able to give them some information, but we also said, you know, if this is drop dead condition, we can't already been approving applications without modifying it to gather the information. And we're trying to make this as low barrier as possible. And some of the stuff that you're asking is going to be kind of intrusive, and we don't want to discourage from that. So the second part of that question is ARPA did tie some programs specifically to what you're serving. And so it would be good information for us to be able to say, well, anyone who was coming through our program, we know that these are the top ends of this, and that's who we served, and to be able to report that. Again, it's not a requirement, but remember from last time, ARPA did have some special carve-outs and provisions specifically for communities or census block tracts that were a certain percentage below the median income. So I guess that's the short answer.
Yeah, no, I mean, that answers the question. I guess my comment would be just hearing some concerns, like just with like the turkey dinner, just for example, there is a question on there on income. And so what I've heard and ran into trying to assist some community members, they still feel uncomfortable displaying, you know, sharing that information. And so maybe an alternative could be, you know, looking at what already information they've shared or they have to provide to other agencies that we can gather by them just clicking options. You know, I guess a better way would say, like, you know, the Reynolds School Districts, obviously that's the school district we reside to. So if students, you know, went to a school, you know, look at that school there and see, did they receive free or reduced lunch? You know, and then kind of ask a more quote unquote general questions, like say, you know, did you know, as a annual income, did you guys make from $0 to $50,000? You know, kind of giving those options where it isn't so specific, I guess. I'm trying to just kind of encourage on just because again, I think once we start asking for actual dollars, just proof of that, you know, what I hear in the community is that they already, you know, associated with public charge. And so I know that that's, you know, not what this is about, but it's still that stigmatism is there, you know. And so trying to find ways where you all can still gather the data you guys need to provide, but and I guess in less intrusive way, like you said, as possible. So asking maybe more general questions that they can still provide that information, I think could be a good approach.
And
I think, Seth, you just hit on something where we wouldn't have to ask a question at all, and that's the census tract. And maybe the broadest way of looking at that would, instead of OHP, might be opportunity zone. Because then anybody in the city could apply, because our entire city is comprised of census tracts that qualify for opportunity zone investment. So, you know, then, because the thing I don't necessarily like about means testing is that if you make $1,000 a year over the limit, you're no less likely to be comfortable and surviving well than somebody making $1,000 under it. Particularly when, you know, average American pays $8,000 a year in medical bills, or maybe right now you got 2 kids in college or something, you know. I mean, it's, yeah, so the you know, if 50,000 is the cap, then the need at 52,000 is probably just as great as the need at 48,000.
And like, I mean, I get the benefit of gathering data, right? Because then, you know, even from there, you can demonstrate the state, we need more funds. You know, this is the bulk of who we're you know, serving, and you know, the allocation is we need more. You know, so I understand the benefit of that data gathering. I'm just trying to find less of a barrier and ways that communities would feel more comfortable sharing that information with the city.
Well, and this is kind of taking a flyer, but to some extent, we've gathered some of the data. I mean, when the Johnson Economic Report pointed out that, you know, 50% of the people that identified themselves as employed in Wood Village made less than $50,000 a year. So, you know, there's probably gonna have to be 2 or 3 of those people making less than $50,000 a year in one household reach, you know, being, you know, comfortable enough for the most part to not qualify.
Yeah, and I mean, the that marginal person who's $1,000 over, wherever you set, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like, you know, if someone $100,000 or $120,000 and applied for the program, have money for someone later to do that. That's not a situation we necessarily want to get into. We want to make sure that the resource goes to where the need is greatest.
Sure.
It's then how do we want to be mindful of kind of balancing that and leaving a little bit of leeway, but at the same time making sure that we could just go out and wave a wand, just drive by houses and know what everyone's income was. And
Well,
Yeah.
you know,
we could
well,
do a really good match.
yeah,
but
I mean, but you know, the census data almost is that magic wand.
yeah.
And then, well, and you know, how many sinister people do we have living in Wood Village that make $150K a year? I mean, if you already can pay your water bill, you're going to come and ask the city to pay it for you.
The experience we've had is that people of the village have not taken advantage of it, and the difficulty has been more of getting people to apply who would qualify. We also want to be mindful of, you know, it only takes 1 or 2 people that would do something like that and then brag to their friends of, hey, you know, it's free water bill, like they're giving it out to everyone else, where's my share?
Well, and even he had a program that coincided with ours, and so I mean, if you wanted to take advantage of somebody, maybe you take advantage of somebody that's not your neighbors and not your city. Actually, PG always has safety net. I mean, I'm on 8th job in the past 11 years, and so, you know, there's been times where I fell behind on the electric bill, and all you have to do is call them, and they'll set up a repayment plan. So, you know, you can always get the aid in ways that are potentially less embarrassing or potentially less dangerous, given you know, a legal status or something like that. I'd be fine with the OHP measurement, but I like the census tract measurement. Councilor Minor, you had something?
Yeah, I like what you have here. This a couple questions. This somewhat mirrors what we were doing previously, doesn't it? Or where is it different? What have we done?
The difference is when we did the electrical, natural gas, and garbage the first time around.
Yeah.
It was the same application. You just had to state that you needed it. Which again, the reason why we felt comfortable with that was because we were doing it as a temporary measure, and it was more, the challenge was getting the word out. A lot of times with programs, the hard part on the front end is getting people to apply. And the longer the program goes on, comes the problem that you have administratively shifts from getting people to apply to making sure that people who apply actually need it and aren't.
Well, and I think it's important that this is money that is federal money too. So I think there does need to be a little more bookkeeping to this. I'm all for minimal barriers. I'm all for minimal barriers to use. But I'm also want us to be cognizant if we continue to get requests that we notch up some verification.
You know,
I
we
don't,
could-
I'm just not in favor of just writing checks to anybody.
Yeah.
But
And-
yeah, go ahead.
And maybe what kind of a middle ground is we could prepare an application for that part that asks for, you know, would you provide either, you know, answers to questions about your income, you know, let us know where you live, because if somebody's coming in and they're not applying for the water bill, we don't necessarily know where they're, you know, they have to tell us where they're at, because,
Oh, they have to give us the bill
Yeah,
because
yeah.
we don't give them the money to go pay their electric bill. We pay their electric bill.
but then
Yeah.
you're entirely correct, Mr. Mayor. But the idea is that we ask those questions, see if if they're uncomfortable with that, see if they would be, say, if you participate in any of these programs like supplemental nutrition, you know, card, you show us your HP card, you know, anything that you have that can kind of is easily verifiable. And we can also put the program together with the provision that, and you correct us, that if none of those work, then it would be kind of Greg's call to approve the payment. And it kind of take those. I'm not anticipating there's going to be a lot of those situations. Giving the city manager the discretion, say, okay, here's what we're experiencing. We think this is a candidate, and we don't want to necessarily push them or drive them away because of this income verification. So in this instance, okay, doing it. That's,
Well, yeah, like I said, I think those, I mean, to me, that is ultimately what we need to do is to make a judgment. We have a process, and then if it takes a phone call, or if it takes a phone call that Greg has with somebody and they give him enough information, I think that part of it has to be a part of our program, that we make a judgment. But the process is in place. And I think that at some point, if you had a couple, you talked to us about a couple, you talking to us about what do we do now? Last year, and you're saying they keep coming and we don't get anything. We go knock on the door, nobody opens the door. So, you know, we have to recognize that, and that's more of the people that I want to make sure that at some point we have an agreement that we begins to notch up and ask for maybe additional verification.
yeah.
I think it would be cool to, you know, like talk to the Energy Trust and PGE and what are some tools for like conservation and things like that that they can hand out. I mean, it seems kind of cruel, but we did see some frequent flyers towards the end. You know, we'd pay 3 months worth of electric bill, and then 3 months later we'd be paying their electric bill again. Only the season didn't really change, but the bill went from, you know, $600 and some to $900 and something. Buy 2 more freezers.
Yeah.
And so, you know, putting out some education about how to keep the bill low, I don't think would be, I don't think that should be embarrassing to anybody or put any undue stress on people. That would just be being responsible fiduciaries in my mind, you know.
Well, that's exact. Go ahead.
I was just going to mention that we had talked last time about potentially putting a cap on it. I think that after taking it back to the staff level, saying probably a better idea would be to get the program rolling, look at it in 3 months. If that's something that might be required, if we have any concerns, bring that back to council for discussion at a later, after we've had some experience outreach.
Well, and I would certainly support that. There's going to be that we don't start out with a cap and you come back in 3 or 4 months whenever it's time for us to take a look at this and tell us what's working and tell us what we need to tweak. And by then we'll probably have some real, you know, some field research that will tell us how we could modify this to make sure we're getting help to people.
What kind of next steps of where we would move forward based on this is I'll put together a questionnaire, give some income ranges, some additional types of verification if they don't disclose that. And then we'll have if we get one of those applications where they say, I choose not to do both, then that would be one where we could have our staff reach out and just have a conversation, try and make sure that we're more understanding, because we're aware that asking people for financial information or personal information is not a business we ever wanted to get into, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we do have something in place to say that we're being good stewards of the funds. And then we would, in November, we would prepare those materials, prepare some social media outreach, probably start calling people, at least on the city utility side that we know have outstanding balances that are more than 2 or 3 months in arrears, and start doing kind of the same things that we did with you. Do a door hanger, drop off an application, try and call, like get them coming in, and then start advertising that for private utilities. If you don't have a water bill, here's kind of how about applying and get that information out. So we would start that process in November. I know that originally we talked about waiting till January to program off, but we already have the list of people on the city side that we can start reaching out to, and so that moving is clear those encumbrances off of our books.
That's right.
I like the fact that you're saying, provide them a list of ways to verify. So, if you don't mind, I would like to look up some, that would be a potential ones for folks that would not qualify for your SNAP or things like that, and kind of share that with you. And then, I'll obviously run it through Greg, and if want to present it back, just find those means where, again, you guys are receiving what you guys need, but the individuals can still benefit from this as being residents of Wood Village.
So definitely.
Hey, Counselor Rio Campos, maybe my field research was in reference to you, kind of, is that these individuals that I would appreciate if you could just ask them, what are you comfortable providing? What would it look like, so that we could, that could be the template for people that you might not know, but it might be a way for staff to give that option to somebody. So, I mean, maybe you can help a little bit here in what would it look like for the individuals that you're familiar with.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned one of them last time was maybe, they got a letter from their employer saying,
Sure.
X, Y, individual here, X, Y, and, makes X, Y, and Z, roughly X, Y, and Z. That could be, obviously we'd be looking for, I don't want to say proof again, but some way to verify it is a legit, business as well, and things of that nature. So, letterhead, a business card, again, looking at those means that are more accessible and not so intrusive, like you mentioned before. So, I think Councilor Minor, you bring up a great point. I can make those, outreach to the community and see, this is kind of a plan. What are comfort levels, and would you be able to provide this, that, and the third, and then share it with Seth and the rest.
Sure. When we come back in 3-4 months, we may, may be helpful as we look at this again.
And we reached out to, I reached out to some finance folks to try and see what was out there, and I also reached out to some university resources to try and see kind of programs that are low barrier but still have some sort of component. And the overwhelming response was most people are much stricter than we are when testing their programs. There just wasn't a lot of people who are trying to do what we're trying to do, which is keep that low barrier accessibility, make it easy. Take that look at means testing as a way to encourage people from applying for the program. It's a hoop for them to jump through, where we're trying to expand the hoop as wide as we can, not narrow it.
And I appreciate that, because I mean, again, it just shows the level of service that this, you know, all as staff are trying to do as well, so.
Are we,
Oh, go ahead, John. I'm sorry, Councilor Meyer.
no,
Go
no,
ahead.
I'm done. I was just wondering if this takes a motion or is this a discussion, just it's a discussion item?
Just a discussion.
Yeah, the staff report says I move to approve, but I think a thumbs up of what we've gone over is perfectly fine. And then, one of the things that I was gonna say, you know, is, you know, we make it, kind of make it incumbent upon, Councilor Rios Campos to do, extra volunteer work and outreach. You know, I mean, if there's a point where staff's overwhelmed and you got 20 door hangers that have got to go out to a counselor in arrears, if you don't mind me doing it on a Saturday, you know, just drop them off at my house.
Yeah, same, I put myself in that same boat there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, you can sign me up. And remember, we talked where staff is, and we don't need to get into it tonight, but again, using some of these funds, if we need additional support at the city, to try to use this in a effort to help somebody in our city, maybe get a little training and some opportunities to work. So
Yeah, and Councilor Minor, I know that you brought that up. It wasn't in the staff report, but we did have a discussion at the staff level about whether or not that would work. We talked to Becky, and she said that she didn't see this as a huge time burden on her, and hopefully with
Knock on Cory.
this building wrapping up and a lot of the work that she's put in on the IT side, the audio visual, just kind of making sure that we're getting, you know, all the things that are taped up on the wall are actually getting done. She's hoping that as that transitions, that she'll have more capacity to be able to pick that back up. But we did have.
all right, well, that's great.
Make sure
Thanks,
she
I
doesn't have
appreciate
more capacity until the lights are fixed.
It'd be a great
Well, I-
volunteer opportunity if we reached out to like the high school and, you know, those upcoming high school graduates need volunteer hours and recommendation letters.
Well, it kind of be it would kind of be the ultimate internship too, you know, instead of you know getting coffee and making copies, actually see what it means to not be able to pay your light bill.
Yeah, you know, sometimes I know that having a part-time person that is going to do work takes more work than doing it yourself.
Gotta train on it.
And we all recognize those situations. I'd like us to, again, don't abandon the idea or the opportunity that we use some of these funds to support internships or some of those other kinds of activities, even though it may take a little time from staff. If we have individuals and we can help them get a little real work experience that can help them move forward, I think that's also incumbent upon us to look at that.
Thank you, Seth, for that presentation. Do you feel like you have adequate direction?
Yes, we have it. And again,
Okay.
if we run into anything that's a little wonky, we'll bring it back to council for further guidance.
All right, then we'll move on to agenda item number 9. We'll keep Seth in the hot seat for a discussion of the city council retreat.
All right, let me make sure I share the right proposal or the right PowerPoint. All right.
Last stretch.
For your final PowerPoint presentation of the evening, we're here to talk about the annual retreat. So this is the time of the year where if we want to run an RFP, want to bring in some, take a look at the options, we need to think about that now because February is rapidly approaching. Again, just kind of reminding everyone about kind of what our objectives are. We want to communicate budget projections, financial plans, talk about ongoing projects, review how the current annual performance plan is going, and then talk about what you guys want and the strategic direction for the city for next year's annual performance plan. It's a team building training opportunity. It is going to be the first one here in the new city hall, so I know I'm excited about that. And then it's also time to just discuss priorities. I know that last year we had some work on our DEI component that is carrying into this year, both for the staff and elected levels. So to kind of big picture priorities, where we need to go as the organization over the next 5 years. What do you guys want it to be? So for discussion tonight, we want to talk about location, date, facilitation, and just give you a general preview of the of items to discuss, and then get some feedback from you so that then we back and start planning.
City Hall.
Okay. Didn't want to assume, wanted to make sure and check. Okay, we could always contact our good friends over at Pressure Safe to see if the space is still available.
Can we pick the fragrance for the day?
Yeah.
We
Feel a
could,
lot stronger.
we could see if we could make it on Seafood Day. And there would be a live stream component, that's an on option for want to broadcast on our YouTube live channel or on something that we've been able to do this year. Date.
I think in terms of technology, one thing I would like to throw in is that I think it would be interesting during the 5-year plan and the that's one of the opportunities that we take to give the budget committee some idea about what it was that they approved and what it was that we're looking at the potentially having to approve before their term ends. And so, having the Zoom component so that, they don't have to come in but maybe, ask them to attend that segment
And
as part of their training.
We will be able to record at that time the session, so we could grab the hour and a half of whatever piece, and then make that available to
Make it
them.
available to them, sure.
Yeah,
But I think, having them present here brings a different, more of that bonding per se, and then in live moment asking questions, and giving them another opportunity to kind of just absorb the information that later on they're like, oh, I didn't think of this, or, things like that.
And we never eat all the snacks.
I was gonna say they're used to getting
Few more
pie at
people.
budget time, so we had to step up our 5-year plan or our 5-year plan game. Okay, so location, City Hall, we will live stream. Next thing is dates. So typically we hold this either late January up through the end of February. We will note that there's a President's Day on February 19th. Time-wise, we've run it from 8 to 4. Sometimes we get out a little early, but that's generally been pretty good. So wanted to throw out, does you guys want to try and do it early in the month so like February 5th? Would you like to wait until the latter part of the month? Or, check your schedules and get back to staff at a later time.
February 12th would be the only day of those that I would be available.
Okay.
I prefer later in the month. But anyway, so. that's
Well,
my
I think
thought.
the next date, the next Saturday,
March
March
5th.
March 5th.
Well, yeah, I'm comfortable with the 26th of February myself.
Okay.
Bruce, did you say you were available on the 26th?
I am not available February 5 or 26.
Okay.
I would be available
Sorry.
February 12 or March 5th.
Okay, all right, sorry, I didn't.
And there's also we could also have a President's Day weekend. That is the February the 19th.
Paid holiday for you guys. 3-day weekend, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we should work to preserve your 3-day weekend.
Yeah.
If we
Seth, you wanna
did
do
it if we did it President's Day weekend as a team building exercise, can we all go out and chop down cherry trees together?
Yeah.
What, cherry pies?
Then point the finger at one another and lie about it. I didn't do it. Em did it.
That's right.
We did just submit our workers' compensation audit, and we made some declarations about what the council does and doesn't do in terms of a risk perspective,
We
so
got some
as long as
others.
you get wind of you swinging an axe, I think we're okay.
Team
Is
building.
March
particularly
5th too late?
bring in
Is
acts
March
because
5th too late?
it's called out.
The question is March 5th too late? I don't think it's too late. We don't want to have it too early. The too late part is,
That's too
How's
late
that
for you
impact?
guys to get stuff
Preparing
done.
for budget.
preparing for budget. I mean, the later we push it, the less time there is. We get more lead time to prepare the packages that we propose, but less time to actually work out the details for the ones that move forward to get it to you guys. Because we have
So
to
is
have
it too
that.
late or not? Is it too late, Seth?
We could push it. We could try for March 5th if that's the date that would work for council.
I think that works out just to include, Counselor Nissen, Council
Yeah.
President Nissen.
So, the 5th, I think,
March
as long
5th.
as it's not too much of a burden for staff.
Yeah.
Because I can make any of the 4 dates work. I just like to know right away so that when the MACRC asks me, what weekend are you available, I can tell them and MMC ones actually.
Okay. No, that'll be fine. And if we do it in March, we might give you guys a preview of the changes that the budget committee is working on. The GFOA award. The next point we wanted to get feedback on is the facilitator. Had different facilitators, different styles, strengths. Question is we've had Mike Abate do it for the last 3 years. It seemed like we still got some good results and that we didn't run into any issues, but it's always up to the council's discretion of whether or not you want to continue and have us reach out to him to see if he's doing it again, or if you want us to go out for a competitive RFP.
Well, I mean, they, wouldn't hurt to RFP just so you change the sort of the tenor of what's presented. So, because even the best people, it comes kind of one note, when you constantly have them, but I don't want to add a significant amount of staff burden, creating the RFP. What I really liked was the part of the staff report that talked about the potential of having the facilitator just half the day. And that, while we were doing, to figure out how to gather the priorities and create the new APP. I mean, Mike's been the rare person that had experience where he could talk knowledgeably about elements of the 5-year plan and make suggestions in addition to facilitating. But for the most part, any facilitator prior to Mike, we didn't need them sitting there for the 5-year of the utilities and their relevance. And, so I like the potential cost savings. Just go out to Mike again and did it that way. Not willing to take it on as just a half day project, then, forced maybe to do it.
Yeah. And I would caution that it seemed like in terms of his engagement, a lot of the hours were doing I don't think we would save a lot of time on the pre-work where he reaches out to council, he meets staff.
It'd just be the kind of a day of type deal. Yeah.
But if
Let me ask.
If you do start bringing snacks, he might want to stay for more than just 4 hours.
Let me ask a question. Are we going to do any diversity training at this one?
Probably not at the retreat, because part of the APP is that we do a session. And
Yeah.
what Greg has run into in the pursuit of sessions, and I don't want this to sound the wrong way, but like one of the vendors, it's a 5-day training. So it's probably obviously useful and something that we should go through, but I don't think that it's reasonable to put that sort of encumbrance on staff and a volunteer board to have to sign up for something that was 5 days long. And so that took that vendor out of the mix.
Yeah, for sure.
And then our favorite was a vendor that does a 1 day and that also does the staff trainings as well, and a different character of training for the staff. So just how to sort of behave when you encounter persons of color in your daily work, coming in to pay their bill or things like that. So it's a different kind of training, not a one-size-fits-all for staff and volunteers. But they're booked up.
Okay.
And so,
Okay.
and so right now.
So it sounds like, no.
And the third choice was kind of a clear third choice. And so Greg is working on a former professor from PSU. He shared some videos that she's been involved in. I can't remember all of her degrees, but I think her terminal degree is either master's or doctor, and it's in public planning. It's in planning. And, you know, from my mind, we're picking somebody, a planning background is a great one to have, because, you know, we've all seen in our own things that we've read or movies that we've viewed that the planning code is what gets weaponized against people, whether it's redlining or now with the banks, you know, giving credit-worthy families of color only subprime loans. I mean, it's that's the code that cities use when they want to be racist, and that's her background. And so Greg's just trying to convince her because she thinks that her experience is not modern enough, historic.
Okay.
But she's also done a great deal of research and gentrification, you know, and what the Albina network or our neighborhood, for instance, looked like, and you know how it was destroyed by, you know, freeways and urban renewal and things like that. And but that's a primary place where knowing the history really informs what we want to talk about today, because there's some plots of land in that neighborhood that still aren't developed, you know. And when you think about when the freeway went in, you know, we've been pushing people out of that neighborhood since then, and some of it still didn't develop or redevelop. So
So Mayor, so we're not going to do it here.
no,
It sounds like we're still working on it, and it's going to
it's
be
not
at
going to be
another
the
time.
job of a facilitator either. It'll be a person of color that's an expert in the field, and it'll be a day seminar separate from
Yeah.
the retreat.
Okay, well, that answers you answered my question there. I think Mike, if I certainly if he doesn't, you know, think like, you know what, you guys, I'm kind of tired. I think I'll do it someplace else. But I know if you keep working with the same group year after year, pretty soon you get kind of tired of working with that same group. But I agree that Mike sat around, you know, he had some input because he's familiar with us. But if Mike's interested,
I think since his first one was at Old City Hall and he did 2 with us at Pressure Safe, I feel like reaching out to him and giving him a chance to facilitate in our new building seems like a good way of saying thank you for sticking with us.
Nice
through.
reward for having stuck with us through.
I agree. Let's see if we can do it.
Okay.
I mean, I agree, but I still see a benefit in finding someone that doesn't, you know, in a way have personal connections to all of us. You know, because then it's not that, you know, I don't want this also to come out wrong, not that Mike's biased or anything like that, but it also would bring a different perspective and could push us to think further in a form that this individual doesn't know us, and so they're going to come with just their expertise and kind of just oversight view and not really know those roots. But you know, if it's going to be too too difficult for staff and things of that nature, probably not so much, but I think there could be some value in expanding, who would facilitate that.
And it's again, Counselor, it's entirely up to you guys to tell us. The staff is aware that you can burn out on people. I think the consensus was that we weren't there with Mike yet, and that provide some value.
I would pitch it at Mike as the half day, and
Okay.
if he doesn't see the value in putting his efforts into a half day, then maybe we
Do an RFP.
maybe instead of doing an RFP, I mean, with almost every RFP, we have some people we target.
Yeah.
So how about we come up with a target list potentially and discuss
Direct
as a
solicit.
council who we would like the best out of them, maybe rank them and then just direct solicit them.
Okay. Well, we can start
Yeah.
with reaching out with the idea of doing a half-day facilitation, and then that, let you guys know how that conversation goes, and if that doesn't work for either party, then we can move on to coming up with some names to direct solicit.
Good.
All right. We wanted to just review a general agenda for you for this year. So we, as always, recap the accomplishments of the past year. We look for, and then we look at the challenges and opportunities coming forward. That helps inform the annual performance plan development. We're proposing to again continue a review and discussion of the mission, mottos, values, and goals. 5-year financial projection, which again helps us drive our budget. New for this year, ARPA funding, priorities and outreach. We've allocated less than 10% of those funds to programs so far. We have some time up until 2024 to actually spend the money. So this is incorporating that as part of our strategic planning this year, and then as part of our budget process will allow us to do some more community, take kind of a longer term view, what council would like the priorities for those funds to be.
I think it'd be a good time to re-review the community survey that we've already done and maybe discuss the potential of another. It's popped up here a couple of times. It's just, kind of a passing reference to rent or mortgage help because, it was one of our assumptions that some people might need it. But when you look at the survey that we put out there, nobody indicated that they needed it. And so I think we really got to, sort of redouble our efforts to make sure that we know what people want or need before we plan on spending the money, on how to spend the money.
All right, we'll put that as a topic for kind of reviewing. Yeah. The other things that we had was, we already mentioned the annual performance plan. Hopefully at this point in March, we'll have worked with our consultant, water and wastewater master plan. Hopefully we'll have some kind of at least a preliminary draft of kind of some projects, kind of what the outlook's looking like, to be able to present and kind of have some put at that point, all. And then we'll be working with the budget committee on performance metrics, and so we would bring that to you kind of for review and kind of sign off. That's what we want to move forward with for the proposed budget in terms of that's providing valuable information, guys, about how the organization is. That was the general agenda. So just to kind of recap, we're going to do it at City Hall. We'll propose to do it on Saturday, March 5th. The topics are what will be presented, and then we'll add the review of the community survey, and then whatever topics kind of pop up between now and then, we'll as part of the facilitator outreach to make sure to do what we've done is to solicit individual ideas and for you guys to come up with ideas for APP through that process. And then facilitation, we'll reach out to Mike Abate, see if he's willing a half-day facilitation, focusing on the items where we need a facility. The talk of the APP, 5-year projection and master plan update in the afternoon is being optional if he wants to continue to drink the drinks that are provided and eat the snacks that are purchased. Okay.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Seth.
Yeah.
And then that's our last agenda item. I'll just go around the room. Council President Nissen, do you have anything that you would like to add for the good of the order?
No, sir, nothing further.
Councilor Minor
No, nothing from Beatty, Nevada.
and Councilor Rios Campos?
Nothing.
I just want to say, thank you to staff for, flexible and taking on reports that you didn't know until a few hours ago that you were going to be making, because you did a wonderful job and answered all of our questions. So,
Well, and I'll just say that all of us, I think, told Greg at some point, he was such a good job with us, making sure we have some work-life balance and not dragging us in when we're sick. So when he was sounding like Darth Vader this morning, it's like, like, we'll be okay. Like, take care of yourself. And he does a very good job of doing that for staff. And so heard that from probably everyone this morning.
well, good.
Oh,
You
good.
guys,
Good job, you guys. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, then we're adjourned.